Hello, I am CouchCoop and welcome to my top turn-based Warhammer games. What a list, we go back quite far, there are a few repeats for my regulars, but Warhammer fans should enjoy this. But what are we looking at now? Because this ain't any turn-based. We've got StarCraft on the left, StarCraft 2. This was the launch trailer in 2010. This was 12 years ago, I don't need to explain that to you. Over on the right, of course, is the new armouring of the Space Marine, which is direct from Games Workshop. It's a very new trailer, but it just dumbstruck me how similar. I didn't even have to line up any of the music for this. Everything on the left with StarCraft is on silent, and of course we got the music and narrator for the Warhammer clip. They're both around 4 minutes long.
I accept these burdens, knowing no fear.
The pacing of them is almost identical, with the beats just being parallel. Either the people that made the new Warhammer trailer are paying homage to the original StarCraft material here. This is a blind coincidence, or there is just a creative vacuum and the only thing they could think of was to sort of mimic one of the most famous RTS opening sequences. When this came out in 2010, I'll never forget the reveal at an E3 when they first played this, both in Korea, Japan and the European. The crowd noise in front of that screen, you don't hear that sort of hysteric excitement anymore for a video game release. When that trailer stopped and the silence within the hall, there was just this roar from the crowd, like a gut feeling. It was phenomenal. StarCraft sat at the top of the pile for RTS esports games for a good 5 years. It was the Mac Daddy of that whole industry. And then of course things moved over to hero MOBAs and League of Legends. Everything else changed. StarCraft took a back seat, and we're not going to see a third. The state of Blizzard at the moment, you know what I'm talking about, with their lack of HR and just Overwatch 2 having all this weird shit happening to it. StarCraft 3 is nowhere, not even on the agenda, which I have been patiently waiting 22 goddamn years for something in that direction, and there's probably people out there that have as well. And to see Warhammer come out with a trailer that just mimicked it kind of felt like a kick in the nuts, I'll be honest with you. And if you're of a younger generation, you may have never seen this trailer over on the left, and by God, I haven't even touched on years of tech development on video games and visuals, and the two do not look much different. Blizzard team must have been using every bit of modern tech to make that trailer, because it still looks amazing. Alright, I got that off my chest. Let's get things started.
I am iron. I am wrath. I am doom.
Okay, Deathwatch Tyranid Invasion is first up, and it's a bit of an anomaly. It's a PlayStation 4 game that doesn't really exist everywhere on physical or on store, and Deathwatch are a very strange chapter. I say strange, they're probably the hardest. Think sort of crazed, half-possessed, don't really obey direct orders, black-donned mercenaries. This completely sidesteps some of that heritage by just giving you a standard bunch of Marines. Technically, there are some cool material and weapons to be had here, but I want to emphasise, I was horrible to this game when I first played it. I absolutely love it now. It's such a gem. With the little card packs that you open up, you can get a whole new Marine that's got top-tier war gear that you can then slot in now. Think Dawn of War 2 with the amount of adjustables that you have with the weapons, and also got some okay voice acting and graphics. Very stripped down turn-based mechanics.
Begin the process by pouring the flasks into the pools. Expect heavy resistance.
It is like 2 buttons, and it has a problem with selection. The player that you pump moves into and then want to go back to, you'll get automatically pushed along to the next of your 4 in the squad. You're constantly wrestling with the R buttons to try and find out who's got action points and who's next in line to be controlled, but it doesn't detract. It's kind of quite humble with what it's trying to show you. There is no camera movement, it's all direct down, but it's just so faithful to a lot of the lore. Pretty solid campaign story where you're on a hive ship, you've crept on somehow. This would probably explain why Deathwatch have caught out on a hive ship and trying to get to various objectives within a map that looks awesome. You've got all that hive movement a lot of biomass pools. Which brings me on to handling the Tyranids themselves. It does pump a nice bit of variety in, and it's got an almost last stand section to this mission where the pools themselves turn into like spawning points for gaunts, and they'll pop out behind you. That's one good thing that a turn-based game needs to kind of do, is sort of throw in a spanner to the normal move forward, get cover, fire at the enemy. It can feel cheap if they spawn in stuff late in a game and you've prepared for it not to come from the back, but this was pretty cool because I kind of had an idea that we were going to have to hold out until the mission ended. And then gathering of XP for each individual Marine that you've got with you on a mission, and pumping in the little upgrades and incremental cool new weapon unlocks that you found, maybe a master crafted bolt pistol, and then taking them all out again and looking after them as individuals and suffering that permadeath loss, really does put a great case forward for this game to be not a bad Warhammer turn-based PlayStation 4 game. It's just a shame it's so obscure. So keep your eyes peeled, and don't be like me and judge it by its initial surface level crapness.
Necrons crawl from the earth beneath our feet.
Alright, we're kicking it up a notch with Gladius 40k, and of course this is marooned over on PC as opposed to PlayStation 4, and I was always under the impression that it was going to get funding to get put on multi-platforms, but it's kind of a tile-based, turn-based game, a bit like the survival vein, and it probably would stumble with a pad, but that survival series is done incredibly well, and it's kind of looking like Slytherin may be moving on from this IP. They put some cool DLC in, including a Tyranid race. You can play as the Orcs, Marines and Necron on base game, and that's kind of enough for me. I have spoken about this before. The Tyranid edition is kind of expensive in my eyes. This game retails at about £20 to £30, and if you own a PC that's low end, don't worry, because it's tile based, because these models aren't mind-blowingly detailed. It's just a beautiful little strategy game. Friggin' hard though. There's a huge emphasis on stacking up stuff that takes a number of turns to accomplish. So a little bit like a research bar or any days that you have in a game, you've got to build your city, get tiles, new tiles, and increase the size to eventually get more factorial stuff going on to push out vehicles and librarians. It's an incredible setup, and you will just lose yourself turn after turn waiting for things to develop and having a massive war with a bunch of Necrons over in the corner of the map. And the PvP is strong as, and it features one of those local co-op, someone's got to leave the room whilst the other person does their bit type modes. The story or any campaign structure is kind of quite hard to find. The game has a format where it's a bit like Skirmish, and it just says here are your objectives that you'll get accolades for if you do the set number of tasks, which is basically what you're going to be doing anyway if you're going to increase the size of your city and kick the ass of the other person on the map. It does give us a really cool marine research tree, allowing you to sort of pick whether you go and invest in a lot of machinery or keep the troops on the ground, get some hero characters in there, and they've got their various specials, healing buffs, swords that you can then switch to hammers through the research tree, allowing the sort of standard stuff that you would see in a real-time RTS, but with this nice slow pace. You can chill, walk away from it, come back a couple of days later, everything is still totally where you left it. It's kind of an unwritten rule with a lot of turn-based strategy games that if you know exactly what you're doing, you can stack up all your moves and everything will just shift along with you, even sometimes happening all at once, but you know what's happening. There are certain games that don't allow this, that are coming up on the list, and it's really affected them to their detriment. I swear blind that librarian never used to warp in on that title screen. I was sitting here with this game on idle the other night and it scared the absolute crap out of me. A little bit like the Revenant dog meme. We are looking at Space Hulk Tactics, a game available on a lot of platforms, including the Switch, which is a hell of a thing. And of course we can get this on Xbox, no PlayStation 5 enhancements, but it does run beautifully. It had some pro enhancements. I want to talk about its switch out loadout system, which is something I really crave with a good turn-based. franchise. Stuff like XCOM did it really well, and this knows the deal with having your cool little guys geared up and branded and looking exactly how you want them to, and having synergies, getting loadouts that align with others, getting your apothecary ratios all correct is something I love. And it's all about Warhammer, that psychology, I think. And this definitely puts you in the driving seat when it comes to customization on all of your Terminators before going in to the Hulk. Obviously only in this game for a number of years, I'm kind of done with that campaign, and now I look at the cool skirmish, user generated content and some of the cyanide stuff, but you've got some awesome maps. They're well difficult, and it's kind of like skirmish on any other mode where it just gives you all of the access to the cool weapons and different Terminator types, librarians with psych attacks. This whole thing is totally off the hook, and you get to experience all the cool dudes early doors. So what is Space Hulk's magic formula? Why has it been such a mainstay when it comes to both the tabletop era and of course the video game era? There's been about 5 Space Hulk games. Well, I've sort of boiled it down to this. The 2 teams, the Gene Stealer being one of them, has more moves per counter. Okay, they have 6 action points normally within the game, I'm pretty sure, and of course they appear as blimps, meaning the Terminator team doesn't know what they're dealing with until they clap eyes on it. Now the other thing is the Terminator team has less action points, and the Terminators need to spend an action point on stuff like just turning or walking in a diagonal line isn't a thing for them. So it's clever that the Gene Stealers both have that maneuverability, massive number and surprise. The 2 elements work really well aligned with the setup of these long corridors. That was the idea with Space Hulk. It was a brilliant Aliens analogy, to be fair. Look at the heat haze coming out the back of that bad boy. We're on an Eldar ship, right? This map has teleport switch out spots, so I could walk into that and select a Terminator that I would want to flip places with. Jesus Christ, that's handy when stuff goes mad on those corridors. Let's talk about why I like this version of the video game of Space Hulk. It's been very slightly modernized with a cool little card system where you can burn them up, use them as action points, spend them on particular commanders or Terminators, giving you just this little extra couple of inches if things go really awry. And I like that idea. It doesn't tip over the model too much, and it gives that bit of spice. You get some really cool cards, and there's such an incentive to just get bigger, badder and better Terminators to take out to these amazing maps. Having one die is like a house of cards situation as well, where everything will just go wrong from there on in. You need them all to sort of plug the gaps for each direction that these demonic monsters could come in. I'm pretty sure I don't need to pitch to you how awesome this is online, versus and co-op. The whole thing is excellent. I'm not too sure how many players that you can get involved, but 1v1 is totally amazing. Having that map editor as well also harks back to the board game, where I myself can remember putting together big rooms linked with little corridors and putting in the Gene Stealer entry points. There's so much here. Gene Stealer variety also doesn't leave that player out. You can construct your sort of hive, breed, work out what sort of mothership they're going to be coming from. They can all be skinned and added with little logos, and of course the variety that you can employ. Big brood lords, acid Gene Stealers, and getting like the top end librarians fully going straight off the bat through that skirmish mode is definitely the way to go forward with this game, because you just get to see it all in its glory.
Even now, they gird their souls with contempt, stalking their prey with a morbid pride. But they do not see the reckoning I have prepared for them.
Okay, it's time for Chaos Gate Demon Hunter, brand new, literally a couple of days old this. I've had it for 3 days and I've pumped a fair few damned hours into it, and I've got quite a bit to say about it. One of them is the facial animations on it, a PlayStation 3, we've got to say that now, and thank God half the Grey Knights have got masks on, because the NPCs, other than that Mechanicus dude, don't look good. What does look good though is just about everything else with the game. I really love its simplicity. However, there is a huge amount of depth when it comes to background, click-in and dialogue boxes within the ship that you're on. You're basically repairing it and you're flying around, a little bit like Inquisitor Martyr, and visiting very troubled planets, going down there, kicking some ass, technically making it back intact. You do have permadeath and you do lose your Grey Knights. You get a set of 4. There are certain accolades for only going out with 3, which I've attempted. Don't try it. As the name suggests, it's pure chaos butchery here, with some Nurgle appearances. Just had a demon prince pop up from the blood gods, but nothing from the Slanesh direction yet. And I haven't seen too much of that in PR material, but we're off point here. I'm looking at customization. Very happy with all the bells and whistles that you can do to your little Grey Knight guy. However, none of this is held back on an unlock level. They probably could have incentivized me a bit more by saying, look at this amazing medallion you just got because you kicked some ass in that last mission.
Yes, Commander.
Now, this is Gears of War Tactics. Right down the wire. The Overwatch system is pretty much identical, with this triangle giving you a free movement. Everything is indicated the same and the enemy triangle is then visible to you, but what it does have, some really cool environment destruction techniques. And some absolutely awesome animations on the Grey Knights themselves. This also does include a lot of the enemies that you're fighting. It's very pretty, but is there anything going on in the noggin? Well, you can tell that we're mid-length in this video. There's some games that have beaten this, and because it's so new, I was very much expecting quite a revolutionary or almost like current gen experience when it comes to a turn-based game. This is retailing at 35 quid, so that might have been a bit of a big ask, but it kind of falls short on a lot of areas I didn't think it would.
Die! Die! Die!
If you remember, I was talking about stacking up the moves on the turn-based front so that you can just get things done quicker. With this, you have to wait for every animation or task to finish from one of your Grey Knights to then move on to the next. And it will also automatically move you on to the next. And you might not realise that's happened and be like, oh, where did I get all these free action points from? And you're like, no, I've moved the wrong guy. There's no real kind of undo. And sometimes when you finish a combat encounter, you'll be left standing where that encounter occurred after killing said enemy and not continue in the direction that you've been instructed to, inclusive of that move. So you'll just be marooned. You might even be standing on a box and it's the other team's turn and you're like, what the
I am with you.
Grenades also seem to be a huge part of the combat model, just like Gears Tactics as well. Well, this Gears Tactics analogy is nothing but a good thing. I consider that game one of the better modern turn-based games to have come out in the last 5 years. I should put an annotation up in the corner if you want to go and see what the reviews are like. But it really does tread in its footsteps. It's only the Warhammer canon that kind of gives it much distance. I'm talking about the way the map destructs, how that grenade system works, and even swapping out a lot of your players. What about the chaos representation, enemy variety, you know, how much Nurgle is there? And the answer to that is loads, and it's really cool. You have a system that is a bit like a countdown, and it's represented by this bloom percentage, which is in that purple thing up in the center of the screen there. When that ticks off, there'll just be a spawning of chaos minions from random points on the map. I've had that happen to me at really bad points in the game, and it's been like, you're kidding. It felt like cheap padding to stop me finishing that mission efficiently. And that's another thing I want to talk about, is its difficulty. If you know this genre, you'll kind of find this a little bit easy. I have put it on normal, but you can really give these people the run around. But it's first quarter of the game, I came up to actual Chaos Marines and they gave me a bit more pushback. It's a very healthy Warhammer game, and it's a very good turn-based game. You've got to remember that it's a really prickly market, and there are some damned stunners out there that really do pull in a lot of the qualities that we've seen in the games already. Stuff like opportunity when it comes to melee attacks and various enemies coming up to you, and you having a chance to deliver a parry, and it's not even your turn. It does do pretty well on material like that. But Chaos Gate has got some real veterans to try and beat on this front, and let's have a look at some of them now.
Target acquired. I must resist.
Veterans, Battle Sector came out like at the start of the year. Well, it's gone through a bit of a change, and if you have been keeping up with what I say about this game, I've done a bit of a U-turn on it because A, we've got some new particle effects and mist effects, graphics effects on the dust. Did you see the whole screen just go completely sand dune? It's still got the most cack-handed photo mode I've ever had the misfortune to stumble across, but it does allow you to look at some of the love put into these models, and I think that is one of the biggest crimes, is to make a Warhammer turn-based game and not spend time putting your models together nicely. All the little bells and whistles and trinkets that go with the chapter or go with what loadout you've chosen are so important, right down to even hero characters and what they've got on and stuff that they say. Battle Sector is actually quite good on that front, and the twist is there's been a new update which has got a new mode in it, and they've gone and pushed in the Necron free. Okay, Gladius, come on, take note. £10 Tyranid DLC.
Throwing grenade.
Why was I not jumping up and down about this game on launch? Well, the whole thing just lacked this oomph. It felt a little bit weird with its UI. Some of its graphics were a bit janky, and it wasn't performing that great when things got very busy. And I was just like, God damn it, come back to me when you got this all fixed.
Open fire!
I also just hadn't done my homework on it. It's the most tabletop of all of these games. I'm talking about its stats and a lot of its references to codex and actual existing numbers in relation to the physical game on the tabletop itself. So that's a hell of a thing, and it's good to be able to go to some of that source material just like you would as a Games Workshop fan to be able to get better at Battle Sector, because everything obeys that same source material. I was also not utilising my specials and the momentum system and a lot of my characters' individual perks that they could deliver onto my team or onto themselves. There's like a repair dude. You can really start synergizing. You carry around a particular member or commander, and he can just boost an entire platoon by just being there in the background. I wasn't making sure I was efficient with all of those mechanics. Its Overwatch system is also really good and unintrusive, not putting massive red or blue triangles on the map. Camera that also feels very free and natural, and the game models themselves, their idle animations and the detail on the shoulder pads, guys, is pretty damn good for a free update. The camera's locked on Chaos Gate. I completely forgot to mention that. You know how much of a stickler I am for free camera movement. Well, I'm like, it's not locked. You've just got like 4 options and you have to manually swing it around. It doesn't feel natural like this does. This feels like an RTS that just happens to be turn-based. It's beautiful now. You've got these explosions that look completely different. The dissipation when the Necron actually fry a Marine is, of course, that ionization of every particle in your body disappearing into time and space simultaneously, is it? It's 200% worth a revisit just to preview this new Necron versus mode. We haven't even spoken about how cool the Tyranny, because we've run out of time. It's time for number 1. Wow, you sure did a U-turn on this one, Coop. You might want to get a plate, get a knife and fork, get your words from that review and eat them, because you've put Mechanicus as your number 1 turn-based Warhammer game for 2022, and yeah, it looks like you've also been playing it for about half an hour, judging by the lack of unlocks that we see on that screen. I've got it on the Switch, leave me alone. You can probably hear the amount of conflict I'm under with putting this game at the top of the list, because I didn't like it on my first playthrough. I thought it was way too hard, too like dead-ended. It was kind of like roguelike-y back then, i.e. permadeath, start again, you haven't done very well, put a new team of Mechanicus guys together because the first bunch you made were crap. There seems to be like a plateau of difficulty once you get past those first few levels now, and it's just after you get the variety unlocked on different troops to take down to each mission, everything becomes crystal clear. It also had like a subsection before a mission. You saw it there scuttling around in these like secret areas and dice rolling these funny things that you find that could detrimentally ruin your entire team or give you like loads of free money. It was strange. It unsettled me before going into combat, but I worked out what it all meant. And I got some range guys going, and we've got some really cool little impy sword wielding, quick moving dudes. Everything that we've been speaking about with these previous games, be it the turn system, be it that Divinity Original Sin cards at the top there, which if you look at, they're all going up and down, right? That freaked me out the other night when I was doing the edit. That ownership, that bolt-on, that upgrade psychology is so well instilled into this game, with of course the Mechanicus priest being like these multi-bipedal, crazy, half machine, half murderous vicar. Its edge is a cog system that allows you to carry over action points to other moves, build them up, and you can really produce some amazing ripple effect turns with allowing the cogs to be spent at key moments in battle, turning things right around sometimes. The camera works fantastically. It is such a free rock around. You don't feel locked into any sort of isometric compulsory view. And that soundtrack is world famous for me now. It's so deep and sophisticated, and it just blends so well with the gameplay and the mood of the Mechanicus being in this huge Necron lair. It's creepy, it's adrenaline fueling, and at the same time it's giving the game so much gravitas. Very well produced. Everything, even the UI, those tiny little dots that go around the perimeter of your move set, extremely detailed, beautiful labour of love, this game. Its camera and depth of field effects are not perfect, but its representation of the Necron, that race, and its variety is industry leading. I'm so pleased they refined it, and I'm also pleased that I gave it like a second and third look, because this is a perfect Warhammer turn-based video game.